All right. Thank everyone for their patience while we regrouped after our exec session. And with that, I call the April 7th meeting to order. Roll call, Ms. Widener.
Dr. Campley? Here. Mr. Fountain?
Here.
Mr. Keenan?
Here.
Mr. Leggett?
Here.
Mr. McKinney?
Here.
Dr. Sadler?
Here.
Mr. Saylor?
Here.
Dr. Weston?
Here.
Ms. White?
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silent reflection.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Fountain, would you mind reading the mission statement?
The mission of Perkiomen Valley School District is to cultivate an inclusive community of learners empowered to grow intellectually, socially, and emotionally.
Thank you so much. 1.07 is a placeholder for our recognition next week. I believe we are featuring some folks. Oh, did I? Oh, every time. Jeez. Okay, 1.06, approval of the agenda as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion, is there a second? All in favor? Against? Motion carries. Now we're at 1.07. Placeholder for April 14th, which is next week. We have, I believe, our music department folks, some recognitions there. Looking forward to it. That brings us to 1.08, comments on any topic. I will open the floor momentarily for comments on any topic. Anyone from the public has the opportunity to speak on any topic for a duration of 3 minutes. Please state your name and municipality. I ask that you keep your demeanor to that of a professional setting, either school or work. And I open the floor. I have some folks signed in. I see the first is Valerie Drury.
Val Drury, Skipback Township. In our current environment of rampant lies, scapegoating, hypocrisy, and gaslighting, it's critical to call out every example that we see from our public servants and hold them accountable for their speech and their behaviors. In the latest edition of that, I'd like to hold Jason Saylor accountable. I would like to read one of his posts on his Thrive for the 2024 School Board Election Thrive Facebook page. On March 24th, despite our best efforts, Don Fountain and Rowan Keenan have been removed from the ballot for the upcoming Perkiomen Valley School Board primary election. This decision comes after Judy Lofton and her team's relentless attempts to weaponize the courts, threaten the district, and pull staff away from focusing on our schools. Don and Rowan were forced to miss work, and the district administrators were dragged to court, all because of political games. So let's break that down. After reading much of Jason's writings over the years, I've detected that he has a penchant for making big statements and accusations with zero backup. This is no exception. First, he says, despite our best efforts. Well, their best efforts were a display of incompetence. There are a few necessary steps that are required to be on the ballot. One of the steps that is required by law is that you have to submit paperwork to the district office, and they failed to do this basic requirement. Anyone can contact the Montgomery County Voter Services and get this information. What's more, these individuals have actually successfully done this before, as evident by them sitting on the board. So they have no excuse about not knowing what's required. They just didn't follow the law. The next statement is that it's Judy Lofton's fault. This is laughable. How is it Ms. Lofton's fault that your team was incompetent in following the rules, and that you, Mr. Saylor, were such a poor leader that you didn't even manage to verify that everyone in your team did what they were supposed to do? You are saying it is her fault that she tried to hold you to account to follow the law. How is this weaponizing the courts? When did Judy threaten the district? How is this political games to get you to follow the law? Rather, the truth is, because of your team's incompetence, that the situation even happened in the first place. But this is another example of being incompetent, break the rules because you don't think that they apply to you, make up lies, and then scapegoat a woman and whine to your cohort about it.
Thank you. Kevin Vargo.
Good evening, everyone. Kevin Vargo, Collegeville. So I'd like to provide some feedback on the community meeting regarding the proposed grade realignment that we had a couple weeks ago. For context, if you weren't there, the tables were set up in a way to ask for feedback from the community if the 5-6 model was implemented. In other words, if we do this, what are your concerns and how could we improve them? At no table did I actually feel like the discussion would lead to an opportunity for students that was better than what is currently offered in the K through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12 model. In other words, no table at the end had a discussion about how it was better than what we currently have in our alignment. All the conversations were about mitigating the issues that arise from realignment proposal. And I appreciated that some of the tables were actually very honest that yes, this realignment will harm certain areas, specifically sports and recreation opportunities, the number of transitions, as well as obviously the transportation issue we're all aware of. The only table that had a positive outcome was space. We did hear the continued feeling that this was better from the administration. We've now had about 2 months since the first community meetings, and there's been no additional quantification of these feelings to explain why and how it's better for the district. And within that same time, we've had a huge amount of quantification of the negatives, the bus times, the transition, expected academic outcomes, et cetera. The outcomes from the community meeting were clear, that the measurable negatives across all these areas still drastically outweigh any hypothetical positives at the moment. I had an opportunity to meet with Dr. Russell one-on-one, and first and foremost, thank you. It was a very nice, transparent, open conversation. In that conversation, I asked about the space quantification needs. Specifically, how much space would solve this problem? And she mentioned the key thing was that each elementary school wanted one free classroom to manage fluctuations year to year. And I think that's a very fair concern and a very fair ask when you're running a school, to have that level of flexibility built into your structure, your building. But if that's truly covers the need, the district will be there in 1 to 2 years based on current enrollment. So at this point in time, I see really two scenarios. One is we flip the entire district on its head with the realignment, and it's at the expense of spending a ton of time and resources to mitigate all the issues that come along with it. At the end, to really only best case end up equivalent with the offerings we have today, and in many opportunities probably worse off than the offerings we have today. Or we wait 1 to 2 years to naturally achieve this space goal, which is the same time frame that the realignment is proposed at. And you could take those same resources that are being used to spend all this time mitigating and actually do positive change to the community. So there was a ton of community feedback in that meeting, and almost all of it could be addressed outside of this realignment proposal. So really taking those resources and putting at things where we're going to see a true delta rather than spending them on mitigating back to where we're at today. So I continue to urge you to look at the facts, take into account the costs, both economically and to the community, and don't make such a drastic decision on feelings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Judy Lofton.
Judy Lofton from Skipback. It has been publicized that Mr. Saylor is a petitioner in a lawsuit that has been filed against the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. So let's take a look at this lawsuit. The Human Relations Act states that it is hereby declared to be the public policy to foster the employment of all individuals in accordance with their fullest capacities, and to safeguard their right to obtain and hold employment without such discrimination, to assure equal opportunities to all individuals, and to safeguard their rights to public accommodation, and to secure housing, accommodation, and commercial property. And then there's a long list of groups that are protected from these types of discriminations to ensure that people in Pennsylvania can access employment and housing and education. Now, Mr. Saylor's lawsuit seeks to remove these protections from the entire LGBT community. And in the lawsuit, it says that Petitioner Saylor joins this petition individually, and it continues, is also an elected school board member in the Perkiomen School District in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. Now, they got our school district wrong. But anyway, I'm not sure why Mr. Saylor's membership on this board here is relevant to the lawsuit if he's acting as an individual. Then Mr. Saylor wrote an article that talks about his actions on the board that stoked hate in our community. His actions led to our district being targeted with an outpouring of hate from across the country and a bomb threat that resulted in all buildings in the district being evacuated and causing significant disruption and alarm for our community. Now he says he's taking legal action because the Human Relations Commission would go against some of his actions that resulted in this hateful activity from when he was board president. Furthermore, Mr. Saylor's campaign is sending emails under the name PV School Board, and he's purporting to represent the board in sending out these emails. Now, I certainly hope that Mr. Saylor's discriminatory actions and communications are not representative of the will of the board. And I call upon Mr. Saylor to comport himself with Policy 11, Principles for Government and Leadership, which Mr. Saylor voted to approve in 2022. This policy calls for board members to act ethically and recognize that school directors do not possess any authority outside of the collective board. Policy 2 also says that the powers of the school board are not invested in any individual director. So Mr. Saylor, follow the policy you voted for. Stop using this school district to enact your hateful
Thank
personal
you. I
agenda
appreciate
and
it.
act ethically.
Thank you very much. Kim Culp.
Hi, my name is Kim Culp and I'm from Collegeville Borough. I'm here again to ask you to think of our children when you vote for the realignment. We still do not have any data showing that this is what is best for our children. I think we all deserve to know what our children will gain from this huge change. What will they get that they are not getting in our current model? I've said it before and I'll say it again. Transitioning for 2 years and then 2 years again, it is not what is best for our kids. We also know that our district enrollment is going down, so the overcrowding that we have at certain schools should naturally work itself out without making these huge changes and busing students clear across the district. I still have yet to hear about what is happening at the middle school level, which is one of the reasons that I hear that this change is wanted. For transparency, parents and community members deserve to know what is happening at our middle schools to warrant this change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jill Heist.
Jill Heist, Collegeville. Once again, I stand before you urging you to vote no to the administration's proposal for realignment. This decision should be about what is best for our children and their education. I have been opposed to this idea and speaking up about it since 2019 when the administration tried to push it at that time. I attended the community meeting last month, and the overwhelming feeling walking out of that meeting was frustration. Parents, grandparents, guardians were there. They represented every single school, and we were forced to discuss how we're going to fix all the concerns in the proposed realignment, but we still aren't clear on the problem, and we could not have open dialogue about it because we were required to talk about only the topics we were sat at the tables to. People came who didn't have children impacted. They're educators, counselors, school psychologists who were there to desperately try and help you understand that this is not the right way to go. I read the executive summary of the community referenced in section 2.05. Here's my quick summary. For over 3 hours, participants voiced overwhelming concerns in every topic area that the administration forced as a discussion area, urging the district to not proceed with the realignment. The volume and seriousness of the feedback made it clear that moving forward without addressing these issues would be highly irresponsible. Over the last couple of months, I've had many teachers and paraprofessionals in the district reach out to me and share their perspectives confidentially. They don't support the realignment. In fact, they oppose it and they feel misrepresented. They're also not aware of these issues between East and West other than deciding on what field trips they should be doing. The teachers are the ones with our kids every single day for 6 to 8 hours a day if your kids are there later. It's a big missed opportunity if we don't have them fully engaged. From an education perspective, the new plan has us all but phasing out science and social studies in the 5-6 building, which has proven to be ineffective. Eliminating science will all but ensure that our students won't be prepared for 8th grade PSSA. We should be focusing on well-rounded education for our children. If spacing is an issue at the elementary level, we really need to examine the reason why. Are full classrooms being used for a handful of students? I'm going to continue to reiterate these two things every single time I talk. 6 years ago, if we had listened to the administration and closed South, where would we be now? At that time, they claimed the enrollment data and their long-term planning data showed that we didn't need South. So as a board, you really need to push, you need to question, you need to make sure it's the right data before you make a decision of this magnitude. The other thing is we should look at why not redistricting elementary so that we have 2 elementary schools each feeding 1 middle school. The last point I would like to on record is please don't judge us for leaving after having comments. I'm trying to get home and actually see my kids before they go to bed, and I'm trying to make this all work. I'm staying informed by listening to the board meetings, so don't assume leaving is lack of caring.
Thank you very much. Krista McLaughlin.
Krista McLaughlin, Collegeville Borough. I'm here today to voice my opposition to the proposal of creating a 5, 6, 7, 8 center. I also want to reiterate my concerns regarding the lack of transparency from the district and throughout this proposal process. First and foremost, we understand location is simply too far for many families. We're not talking about minor inconvenience. For some, it could be the difference between being involved and being disconnected from their child's school life. Transportation costs will rise, physical and social well-being, including attendance, will be affected, and those minutes lost each day are minutes away from family time, extracurriculars, rest, and recreation activities. Secondly, the data simply doesn't support this move. There's no strong evidence that separating these grade levels into different centers lead to better academic outcomes. If anything, the disruption caused by this change would likely lead to increased needs and academic disengagement. Speaking of disruption, I want to highlight the issue of increasing transitions. Moving students between more buildings more frequently adds stress and instability. Many school transitions negatively impact students socially, emotionally, and academically. Kids thrive on routine and consistency. This plan undermines both. Another important consideration is enrollment. Numbers are trending downward. We're planning for growth that doesn't currently exist, even though you have an increase in student need. We should be optimizing and strengthening our current schools by utilizing and increasing MTSS interventions, especially at the elementary levels. We cannot stretch our resources to create new centers that may go underutilized in just a few years. Finally, if we are truly committed to student well-being and performance, let's look at what research actually says help kids, like later school start times, especially for adolescents. Rather than disrupting grade structures, we should consider changes that are proven to benefit mental health, attendance, and academic success. In short, this plan's not backed by evidence. It's costly, troublesome, and creates unnecessary instability for our students. I urge the boards to reconsider and prioritize solutions that are supported by research and focus on long-term student success. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No one else committed to actually speaking, but I want to open the floor to anyone else that has anything to say.
Hi, Kate Trabalka, Collegeville Borough. I apologize I didn't prepare as well this time. Bear with me. I just want to say I wish Mr. March was here. I actually did get to go to West 3 times since the last meeting. My kids' soccer practice got moved over. It is beautiful there. It is still half an hour away from my house, so it's still pretty far. I also got to go to the musical, which was fantastic. Again, beautiful. And if we lived closer, I would be really excited to be going there. Doesn't make it any closer to my house. I understand that's where the available land was at the time, and I sound unprofessional, empathize with that. But it doesn't change where South is. It doesn't change where these families live, and we're greatly impacted by this. I want to make just a couple of things. My kids do a lot of sports. I think that's something that is absolutely amazing about this community, to be able to do field hockey, lacrosse, soccer, swim. I could go on cheer, football. Our kids just won states for basketball. That is a sport that is potentially affected by the middle schools because that is indoors. There's a limited amount of people that can do it, and we potentially will lose an entire middle school team. That's a big deal because I could tell you that my kids are in 3rd grade and some of their friends see these girls as role models and they want to play basketball now. And we're going to take that opportunity away. We're going to have the availability to do 5th and 6th grade intramurals. That is going to be really difficult because, again, now you're taking a bus from West that is going to stop at every single house to get to my house that's already half an hour away. I've asked people in my neighborhood, I can't find anybody that takes it because it's so far. They have to carpool. And that's okay. I have a lot of people I can carpool with, but not everybody can. So that might knock down some of these kids from doing sports, especially if they're kind of in the middle. If you have like the upper people, they'll make the team. If you have like there's some that will do elsewhere, but it's just going to knock out a lot of kids from being able to do sports. I'm running out of time already. I'm shaking. I wanted to also mention, this is really important, that there's no data that's been shown that this is going to be beneficial at all. It's all about feelings and education. You guys went to school for this stuff. So did teachers. Teachers know these kids. If it's not about the data, then at least get their opinions because they're with these kids all of the time. And I was just talking to a teacher in middle school and they're afraid to say anything for fear of their jobs. And there should be some way for them to make their opinions known without fear. Lastly, before I run out, I encourage everybody to get their people that are running for positions on the board to let us know because it will affect how we vote. Keep that in mind. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Shona McGee, Skip Back. I wasn't gonna talk tonight, but listening to everybody speak so eloquently about the realignment, I just want to say, I drive the 5 o'clock activity bus from West. There are nights I don't get kids home till after 7 o'clock at night. They're serious about this. It really is going to affect the kids and their sports. That's all I really have to say. I just want you guys to know that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. That will close this portion of public comment, and we will move on to reports and presentations. Student Liaisons report, Ms. Tremba and Mr. Lees.
Good evening. We hope you all had a great couple of weeks and are enjoying April so far. You can't extend it
Okay, no problem.
We'd like to start by congratulating the high school girls basketball team for their victory in Hershey. This is the first ever state championship for our program, and they've had a very successful few years as a team, and we're very proud of them and our community for showing up and giving them support.
We'd also like to congratulate the PV boys lacrosse team for keeping up their 8-0 winning streak on Saturday and wish them good luck tomorrow against Springford. The girls softball team has also gotten off to a great start and currently boasts a 7-1 record.
And we'd also like to mention the stunning performance of the musical Cinderella this past weekend and thank the cast and crew for a great show.
And then finally, we'd like to remind seniors to buy tickets for senior prom by Thursday and to thank everybody involved for a great first junior prom.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. 2.02 is President's Report. I echo all of that. We had a very exciting end of March / beginning of April, and I would like to also extend my congratulations to all of the groups you've mentioned. And the other thing that I wanted to mention, which I promised to do, was that it has been brought to the attention that members of the school community have been receiving political emails from an account that is showing up in inboxes as PV School Board. For the record, I just want to point out that we as a school board of 9 did not approve or direct these communications as members of the school board or representatives of the school district. That was the only thing I wanted to say on that, just to make sure that it was on the record. And with that, I move to 2.03, which is the Superintendent's Report. Dr. Russell.
Thank you, Ms. White. So a couple of items for this evening. I will also echo some of what our student representatives shared. and talk a little bit more about some of the outstanding performances on the part of our students this time of year, the grade level realignment, just a touch point on that, surveys we plan to administer, and what happens during spring. And you heard the mission earlier this evening. Our vision is innovative teaching for lifelong learning. We want our students to graduate wanting to continue to learn. We don't often emphasize that, so I'm incorporating that this evening. So let's start with our state champions, our girls basketball team. And I mean, this has been a fun team to watch over the years. I thought for sure they were going to take it last year. They took it this year, and Mr. Saylor, thank you for driving out to Hershey. There was a great group of PV fans that were there in the Hershey Giant Stadium to watch the game, and they came to play basketball and beat the team by about 30 points. So they did a great job. It was really impressive. And these young women are role models for others to follow. Just a class act. So kudos to them and what comes next for them. They have provided great entertainment and made PV proud. A couple of more pictures here. Some of them I'm crediting the Mercury with. He did a much better job than I did, but really a lot of fun to go out and watch the game, and the girls did not disappoint. So congratulations once again to our girls basketball team. When they came back, just to give you a little sense of oh, never mind. But they had this great grand welcoming, and Chief Miller and some of the township municipality leaders organized this. So I didn't think this was going to end. I mean, it just kept coming and coming. So lots of people came to support them and welcome them back to the high school at about 10:30 at night, which was just a nice enhancement, cherry on top, if you will, for the girls. So great job. Can't say enough about them. So some other outstanding performances. I had the pleasure really of attending Indoor Color Guard. I wanted to give you a sense of their routine. They hosted a home event a few weeks ago, and some of what these...
A person who thinks all the time has nothing to think about except thought. So he loses touch with reality and lives in a world of illusion. By thoughts I mean specifically chatter in the skull. Repetition of words, of record, calculated. I'm not saying that thinking is bad. Like everything else, it's useful in information, but will certainly put a bad master. And all so-called civilized peoples have increasingly become.
So you get the idea. They're very talented, and they spend a lot of time rehearsing and preparing to perform their routines, and they throw those rifles in the air, and very coordinated and sophisticated and really impressive to watch. So kudos to them. PVHS Indoor Percussion, they also had a home show earlier this year. This past weekend, they happened to be at Springford. Just another little snippet, again, of some of the talents of our students. There were 28 teams here in this competition and about the same in the color guard competition. So our teams go up against quite a few other teams, dedicated individuals to be present and on site. Dr. Campley, I happened to see you there. Oh, terrific. Excellent. That's great. They took fifth. Wonderful. Really impressive. So let's transition to the musicals. They also occurred this time of year. I had talked a little bit about East's musical since last month and the superintendent's report. Frozen Junior was performed by PV Middle School West. So you see some pictures there. Students did a great job. The amount of dancing this year was really impressive on the part of our students. The Descendants at East, as well as Frozen Junior at West, and then Cinderella, which was really impressive. And I thought this season was one of the best I've ever watched, really. All three musicals were really impressive. So again, kudos to our students. The time that they invest and the performances that they demonstrate, really impressive. Make PV proud. So thanks to all of our students who are here all hours of the night practicing. All right, let's shift to the grade level realignment. I shared with the board, I wanted to give you a brief update this evening. I want to review the purpose. Yes, the purpose is about space constraints as well as availability. As we've talked about this, it has also emerged. West has a lot of space available. East does as well. We also feel like we can actually more effectively meet the needs of our students, especially with the increased number of specialized classrooms that the district has hosted in recent years. We have a vision to improve educational experiences. By moving to these grade level centers and combining students based upon where they are developmentally, we believe we can more effectively target their needs, their strengths, and improve their experiences. When we went to a 6-8 alignment, there wasn't hard and fast data that said to us a 6 through 8 alignment as a middle school model is going to do better for kids. There were theories. There were ideas about how we might be able to reach students, but to have concrete data in advance of a proposal like this can be very challenging. We can look at achievement data and we can target where we believe we can improve. We can talk about teaching practices. We can talk about leadership. We can talk about what we can do for and with students. But much of it goes without concrete, hard and fast data, which I know would be really helpful to some individuals. That's not always the case that it's available. We also, as a purpose, want to unify students sooner than 9th grade. We believe that serves their interests. So we've had an increase in the number of kindergarten classes as well as specialized classes. With those specialized classes comes supplemental and resource staff that are necessary to support and meet those diverse and evolving needs of our students. We also have space available at West and East. So the recommendation that we brought forward and shared with the board was to move or create an intermediate school out at West, where we would combine all 5th and 6th graders. You heard some comments this evening from some of our families about that. And to create a 7-8 middle school at East. Again, to really target and focus on meeting the strengths and enhancing meeting the needs and enhancing the strengths of our students. We did consider earlier on the idea of an early learning center. We went out and we talked a little bit about that. If we put K through 2 students, kindergarten through grade 2 students at Evergreen, it would be 900 students right now today. If we put K through 1, it would be about 600 students right now, today, if we did that in 2 years. We eliminated that option because we were more concerned with a transition on the part of 1st graders than we were with a transition on the part of 4th graders. We felt as if students are at more of a readiness to be together as 5th and 6th graders and to transition as 4th graders into that grade level alignment. We also talked about that grades 5-8 alignment, and we've had some support for that 5-8 alignment around the board. Administration cannot support that, has not supported that. We also talked about remaining status quo and doing nothing. So feedback from the community conversations. I want to honor some of what was shared with us during this conversation and some of the challenges. You heard some of them this evening from our public commenters. The distance to West is far. It's at one of the most northern points in the school district relative to where some of our other families exist. It's far. The distance is greater than what they experience currently. There was worry about splitting siblings and having children in a couple of different schools, the added transition, the concern about extracurricular opportunities for students in 7th and 8th grades, However, just as a point, we have had more 6th, 7th, and 8th graders at East than we will have in 7th and 8th grade were this to move forward. So we can talk more about those opportunities. I am concerned about reducing opportunities. I don't want that to happen for our students because I know how much that engages our students in school. We have ideas on how we might be able to accommodate that and afford as many students as possible those extracurricular or co-curricular opportunities. And the questions that we got, what other options are there? What else are you thinking about? There were some benefits that were called out. We actually do have some families that are in support of this model. They appreciate the idea of unifying students. Our special education department and some of the representatives there believe strongly we can more effectively support our special education students with their programming. We can afford all students consistent programming. And yes, that's certainly our effort every day. But when we have all students and all staff of one grade level, of a particular grade level, or 2 grade levels in one building under the same leadership, that is more likely to happen to a greater extent. We also have ideas around the new and different opportunities that we could initiate and implement for 5th graders. Some of them are listed there as some of what's come up. And the access to enrichment, if we have all 7th and 8th graders on our campus here, those that are ready would have access to the high school. Right now, we do have some 8th graders, even younger students that come to the high school to take coursework from West and from East. It's certainly more logistically feasible and doable to have our East students access that coursework. It's much more difficult for our West students, but we want to afford it for those that are ready. We want to afford them that opportunity. So what other ideas or options also emerged? You heard tonight, redistrict the elementary school lines, balance enrollments. The other idea that's come out and been mentioned a couple of times is instead of splitting Evergreen, 70% goes to East when they prepare to transition to middle school, 30% goes to West. For skip back, it's almost 50-50, 49-51. Instead of splitting Evergreen and skip back, send students as cohorts from elementary schools to middle school. So combine, for example, all of skip back with all of Schwenksville going to West. Combine South, they all go to East as 6th graders with all of Evergreen also going to East. So that avoids splitting that cohort of 5th graders when they're transitioning to middle school. That's been an idea. Another idea was, okay, if distance is the issue, and right now as we know it, the construction is happening at the north end of the district, do we shift the district north and put the 5-6 center at Evergreen on campus, adjacent to a 7-8 and the 9-12 building here at the high school? Just ideas and options that have come out of conversations. I want people to know that we're listening to them and we are considering the feedback that's been provided by all. There will be additional conversations. Next steps, we're looking forward to this report. It will help us to more clearly understand long-term enrollment projections. We know what our numbers tell us. The Planning Commission is a bit more official. We're looking forward to that report. I'd like to review it and have invited the board to participate in a board retreat. I'd like to suggest, if the board is in favor of this, April 28th, to really take a deep dive into this report and look at all of the details that come with it, the economic indicators, the construction, and not only the space constraints that we've talked about because of special education classes and specialized classes, staffing that we've added, but also because of the emptiness, the openness in some of our buildings that we project will exist. Are we being as resourceful as possible as a school district if that's the case? I'd like us to look at it all. So we'll review that report. I'd like to take a deep dive with the board. It's for informational purposes. In a board retreat, there is no deliberation. There is no decision making. It is an opportunity to gain more information, to ask questions, and dive deeper. That would be my recommendation. And then, of course, there would be board and public updates in May once we've gotten through that. All right, I'm going to transition from that to surveys. We are preparing to send out a school culture and climate survey. We want to know how our stakeholder groups are feeling about their school or their children's school. So we have a parent survey, we have a staff survey, we have a student survey. I will have information in my newsletter this week, and we'll have some time frames within which we'd like to collect the data. This survey is similar to one that we administered 2 years ago. This gives you a sense of some of what would be included for our parents, some of the types of questions that we'll ask. We really want to know what kind of culture and climate individuals perceive they are a part of. And then what can we do to improve where we need to? What goals would we develop once we analyze the data? What action steps would we want to take? And welcome to spring. And while we're, I think most of us anyway, are desperate for some nice weather, some warm weather, some sun, with spring, we typically see that, and it's a welcome change. Lots of activity on our campus, lots of activity at our schools. We also have our state assessments and the College Board AP exams. So our students are moving through some rigorous times coming up. AP testing dates, the testing window opens on the 22nd for English language arts and then math, as well as science. And here's an example. If you feel so inclined, you can take a look at this ELA 5th grade PSSA passage and some of the questions that our students are up against when they take this. This is a released item. You can get it from the website. Keystone exams also take place in May, so they're a little bit later. We get through PSSAs that will all be online this year, and then we'll shift to Keystones that start mid-May. And students take a Keystone exam at the conclusion of a specific course, either Algebra 1, Biology, or 10th grade English. That's when they take their Keystone exams. And we have asynchronous days for students that are not participating in Keystones. We also have students who are participating in advanced placement will take AP exams in May as well. You can see the schedule there. So some of our students are moving through a significant amount of testing. Some of our middle school students, for example, they take the PSSAs, grades 3 through 8. Those that are in Algebra 1 will also take the Algebra 1 Keystone. So it's a busy time of year for our students in this regard. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Russell. There was a lot of information there. So I want to open the board table up to questions or comments with regard to, if we could go section by section, that might be helpful to just sort of stay on task. So I guess we'll start maybe with section 3, the grade level realignment. So I know that we had talked a little bit about the board retreat and the review of that information that you're looking to get back for May 28th. Does anyone take issue with that date? April 28th, I'm so sorry. Okay, so then we can add that to the calendar. Thank you.
So that's a good question. I was wondering about 6:30 to 8.
Yeah, I think
If
that's fair.
6:30 is doable with work schedules and family schedules, to try and end at a reasonable time so as not to be too late, if that's comfortable for the board.
Where do you want to meet? Because PVSLA was intending to meet here, but
So you have a conflict that night? I was going to meet at DO in the large conference room.
where?
District office in the large conference
okay.
room, I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sure they'll be fine if I can't be there.
Okay.
And Dr. Russell, when do you anticipate meeting materials would be made available?
So Mr. Weaver and I are scheduled to get the report from the Planning Commission on the 22nd, and we would want to get those to you once we review them in advance of that Monday. So by Friday, I hope at the latest, so that you have at least the weekend to review. If not, another day or two, if we can do that. Yeah.
And then if there's I know that you have a conflict, Dr. Weston, so you'll.
I've already said I'm not
Correct.
available, but I will do my best to
Okay.
Whatever
review
questions.
whatever materials you can provide, and I'll provide my comments ahead of when you meet.
Okay.
Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you.
And then there'll be a debrief back, reciprocally.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that that part's out of the way, does anyone have any comments, questions, concerns about what was presented as a recap and then some additional thoughts for the grade level realignment? So I guess from my point of view, Dr. Russell, I just want to thank you and your team for the continued work that I feel like you are just, you really are just chipping away and making sure that folks feel heard and that feedback is taken into consideration. And I really do appreciate that on behalf of our community, because I do know that the work that was done before the recommendation was made was also very heavy lifting. So acknowledging that, I want to make sure that I also acknowledge the work that you're currently doing, especially in light of last month's meetings. So we look forward to more.
Thank you.
Okay, 4, surveys. No one, okay. So I have a question about the surveys. So understanding that we have already done the climate survey, would we be able to, or be presented with the action items that came out of? I know that there's been a lot of dialogue about some climate differences and what the differences may be between East and West, for example, or feelings of belonging. So I think that revisiting some of that data from past climate surveys is very helpful in the development or the taking into account of the new climate survey. So I think it may be helpful for the community to see some past data results, depending on how closely you were looking at that information the last time around.
Yeah, I think that's a very reasonable suggestion. So once we gather the data, and as I mentioned, there's an article in my newsletter that comes out this week. Once we gather the data, we can do some comparisons and illustrate those based on the past. We did tweak the questions a little bit, essentially kept the same sections, but we're really trying to improve the survey questions to get at what we're looking for. But there will be lots of opportunity for comparison.
Any other comments with regard to that surveying or questions that you would want to see answers to? Speak now. Okay. All right, well, I guess I'm the only one that had questions about any of that. Okay.
Great.
Opportunity offered. Thank you, Dr. Russell. And that moves us to board and district committee reports. Sorry, Mr. Subers. I don't want to steal your thunder.
Just that the only thing I have to report is that we're continuing to monitor the directives and guidance issued by the United States Department of Education. As was previously noticed to the board on April 3rd, there was a directive issued to the state departments of education regarding a certification of compliance with the federal civil rights law, and specifically Title VI, which deals with race, color, and national origin, or discrimination on those bases. We did reach out to the state Pennsylvania Department of Education Office of General Counsel to see if there were any decisions regarding how the department was going to handle that directive, or if there was any guidance available for school districts, and as of today there is not. We received a response. The Office of General Counsel for the department is unaware of any decisions or guidance as of this date, and we'll continue to monitor it. Once any additional guidance is issued, we'll provide it to the district administration, and I can advise the board next week. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Subers. Okay, 2.05 are board and district committee reports. So next week we will have policy preceding our meeting at 7 o'clock. Policy will start at 6. And then the other thing that I wanted to bring to the attention of the board is that we have Education Committee of the Whole and the Wellness Committee both on the calendar for April 17th, one at 3:45, which is the Wellness Committee. That would take place at the district office. And then the Education Committee of the Whole would take place at 7 p.m. here in the library. Now, that is a school closure day, so there is no one in our buildings, although administration is still working that day. So that's why the date was that recommendation for the calendar. But I think that in light of that, if we'd like to have a discussion, if possible, about moving the Education Committee of the Whole meeting to a more open date. Either the 15th or 16th, which is earlier that week while school is still in session, or the following week, the 22nd and 23rd, because there are some important business items that we're going to hear about in the education section that I think would warrant more robust discussion with availability. So I open for comment there.
Well, I know for me, for that Thursday, I won't be able to attend any
The 17th.
Yeah, for the 17th, I won't be able to attend wellness or education of the whole due to the spring break holiday.
Right, so that was something that came up in our agenda planning, is that it did coincide with being off on Thursday and Friday. So that's why I want to offer the option to see what we can do with regards to moving the meeting, either earlier that week or to the following week.
I also am not available on the 17th, so I'd be more than happy to see it earlier in the week.
Okay.
I just want to confirm, Ms. Widener, do we have an MCIU board meeting on the 23rd? I have that on my calendar, but
I
Ms.
don't,
White
yeah.
did not.
I see the
Do you know?
breakfast.
Yeah, is there, for the 23rd? Mr. Liggett, do you have that on your calendar?
Sorry about that. Yes, I do have the MCIU board meeting on the 21st.
23rd?
23rd. No, not on the 23rd.
Yeah, we need to
is that the
clarify
exact-
that date.
We sure do.
There's a conflict because I don't see it, but Dr. Russell has it on hers.
The meeting that I need to attend, that's on the Wednesday night.
Yeah,
which
that's
is the one that I
Wednesday.
have here. 23rd, that's Friday.
April 23rd is a
April.
Wednesday.
Okay. You're right. It does say date that on here.
Calendar says the 23rd and the 21st for
North Monco is the
Monco's
21st,
the 21st,
right.
and mine and MCIU for the 23rd.
Okay.
See, I don't have, MCIU's not on our,
Right. So the 23rd is not a good date to shift to.
okay, so then that would leave, oh, I wrote it down on this other
15,
side.
16, or 22.
Okay.
15, 16, or 22. Tuesday, Wednesday, or the following Tuesday.
If no one has a super strong feeling about it one way or the other, I don't see any issue with having it on the 22nd after the holiday, but.
Was that the night of the
And I
concert?
think, so, was that the night of the concert? No,
It is.
no, the 22nd is okay.
Okay.
22nd is nothing. Well, it's Earth Day, actually. I mean, it's not nothing.
So if the board is okay then.
Okay.
Then Ms. Widener will
That'll give time to
cancel
advertise.
the 17th. Mr. Mitchell, are you okay for the 22nd? Okay. Mrs. Ducci, do you know if you're okay for the 22nd for wellness? Okay, thank you. So we will re-advertise for the 22nd, and I'll put that in the memo just as a reminder.
Thank you for the accommodation there, everybody. I think the community will appreciate that, especially if they want to attend education of the whole with regards to the agenda that Mr. Mitchell is going to go through tonight.
Ms. White, if you could just get someone to, or someone can go to wellness, I'm out the 22nd.
Okay, understood. I may be able to.
And is wellness still going to be at 3:45?
I think it would
Yes.
stay at 3:45.
Yes.
Because that's the earlier
Yes.
one.
Zoom
The every
link,
other.
3:45, yes.
Okay. So that's the MCIU board, which is why it's not on my calendar. It's on Mr. Liggett's calendar. The legislative, we have already had. That's where I was confusing things.
sorry.
The breakfast, however, just as an aside, is on the 25th.
Correct.
So we need to let Ms. Widener know if we are able to attend. And one of our, she's a senior, correct?
No, she's a junior.
She's a junior. Okay,
Yeah.
one of our students will be actually speaking at the legislative breakfast, which is pretty cool. Very cool.
Yes.
Okay. With that, then we also have safety and operations on the 24th. Did I catch them all? Is that all of them? All right. Anything else to add to board and district committee reports?
Yeah, something, just an update for the tech school program, the JOC. This is something that you probably are aware of, but I want to make it something that's public knowledge. The 2025 Skills USA State Competition We had several students that were involved, one of which is an 11th grader, Olivia Giordani, who was elected. She's an construction carpentry student from here, but she was elected to a state office for the upcoming school year. We also had, and I will apologize in advance if I butcher these names. I will do the best I can. But Julia DeToito in advertising design came in second place. And we had another student, Connor Sachs, in electrical trades, who came in third place. So some outstanding performances from our students in the Skills USA state competition.
Thank you, Mr. Fountain. That's exciting. Good.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. Thank you, Mr. Fountain. We're going to try and invite those students and recognize them publicly in May.
Along with the
Thanks for
basketball
calling
team,
them
hopefully.
out. Yeah, we have a lot. We have a lot.
Yeah,
going on
May's
in
going to be a
We
big
have
one.
a lot of athletes to recognize, and we'd like to bring our technical career center students.
Wonderful. All right, so that would end board and district committee reports. Moving on to the consent agenda as we build it out. It appears as shown. And that brings us to section 4, education. Mr. McKinney.
Mr. Mitchell, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. We have our education updates that I'd like to share. So we have 4 items for updates that we are going to be going through: secondary summer school, summer library hours, the art study, an update of that, and then our enrollment and staffing update. Starting off with our secondary summer school, this is an item for approval for the consent agenda. So summer school is our credit recovery program. The dates are set for June 23rd through July 31st, as you see here on site, facilitated by our instructors, but it is an online program where our students come here and participate in the program with the instructor's oversight as they're doing it independently online, and it is $300 per course for our students for credit recovery. Any questions about the summer school programming? Okay, if there are no questions, move on to the next item, which is summer library hours. We are pleased to be able to open up several of our buildings for summer library hours, as we've done in the past. This year we have East and West are both offline, so this will only be at our elementary buildings. Several of our elementary buildings, the specific dates and times are still to be determined. They'll be open for book selection for several days out of the summer, open to district residents. Any questions about the summer library hours? Yes.
Why are East and West offline this summer?
East and West are offline for construction and update projects, so we don't have those buildings available to us.
And that's something that we have discussed that. In lieu of that, however, for secondary level books, since the high school will be in use, is it an option to allow for the high school library to have access available?
Sure, we can take a look at that.
And then if I know that there's transportation then, but maybe from East it would be the logistic place to bring maybe some middle level books on like a rolly cart to have them housed here.
We can look into that.
Yeah,
Maybe
certainly.
based on circulation or something like that. I think that would be helpful as a resource to the middle
certainly
level.
we can take a look at it and work with the librarians on that.
Thank you. That would be helpful. That would be my only comment with regard to this.
Okay. All right, if nothing else, then we will move that. Next, our art study update. This is actually concurrent with coming on the heels of the work that we've done on our comprehensive planning. The purpose of the art study is really to take a look and investigate the direction of our programming, looking for more robust and sustainable future programs for our students. So the inquiry question there, how do our visual and performing arts curriculum programs support students' interest and their opportunities to pursue the arts beyond high school? Those are really important questions. We know that our arts program, as we've been taking a look at, is extremely well done. We have great participation. But when we start taking a look, and this was some information that, of course, came up when we're looking at the in our data study or in our data presentation. Even if you take a look here, we see how the music declines over years. Is that a natural attrition? I'm sure part of it is, but then we also have to take a look to see why some of that's occurring and if we're missing opportunities for some of our students. We know that through our comprehensive planning, we took a look at activities, and one of the priorities that we came up with was this priority for enhancing belonging through engagement, knowing that as students participate more in arts, in the sciences, in extracurriculars, that they have greater opportunity to feel at belonging in the schools, but also that will improve their achievement as well. So we want to make sure that we are taking a look at what's happening across the arts programming in order to make sure that we have sufficient pathways. And one of the really important things around our pathways is going back to that original question, do our students see the opportunities for careers that are coming out of the arts as well? So this is not just arts for interest, but arts for career opportunities that we want to be able to enhance for our students. So Natalie Horenko, our humanities supervisor, has been leading this work. She's met with our educators across the district for multiple meetings, and in those multiple meetings we've talked about some of the really important things that they see as some of the opportunities and some of the challenges within our programming. So we went through what was called a 3 Horizons framework activity. That 3 Horizons, you take a look at what we want to be able to do in the future. What is it we want to be able to create? Where are we right now? And then we talk about that bridge. So we're in that bridging conversation right now from here's what we'd like to build, here's where we currently stand, and then what are those opportunities in between that we'd want to be able to provide for the students in order to get from where we are to where we'd like to go. One of those things that has come up in some of the conversations that we think might be an opportunity, something important that we'd like to explore with the board, is teacher on special assignment for arts coordination. That TOSA, that teacher on special assignment, be it a half-time position that we are looking at right now, would benefit the arts by being similar to what happens with our athletic coordination. Someone who can actually coordinate what happens across the buildings, making arrangements, ensuring that the curricula are lined up the way they should, the trainings are occurring the way that they should, and that we have the community outreach that we need in order to make the arts program really integrated into what we do on a regular basis. So that's something that has come up in an early conversation. We just wanted to bring it in front of the board at this point, as even before we get to the final recommendations, that this may be one of those things that we discuss. The next steps for this program, for this arts study, we have some student focus groups that are going to be occurring right after spring break. We're going to have a parent focus group, and then we're having a professional conversation with community members who are arts professionals. That's going to be led by a colleague who is an arts professional as well. From that, we'll be able to get recommendations to the board as we promised in May.
So, Mr. Mitchell, in reviewing these slides and taking a look at calendars, I did make note that the music boosters, who would be really your most beneficial parent focus group coalition, they do have a board meeting on the 28th. So I think maybe coordinating with key stakeholders in that group for a date would be helpful.
Thank you very much.
I understand that I think it's the second to last meeting. I know some of them are here. I keep looking over your shoulder, but I'm curious as to whether or not
it's a couple weeks away. I'm sure we can make that adjustment.
Perfect. I want the right people to be in the room for you, so you can have
I want the right people to be there.
They cannot wait to have your ear, I'm sure.
I'm sure. So are there any questions about the art study? Okay, no questions being heard. Last, we have our enrollment and staffing update.
Actually, I do have a question really
Yes.
quickly. So can you talk a little bit about the recommendation for a TOSA would not be adding a position? Can you talk a little bit about that as to what that person's responsibilities so what kind of person is it? Is it just are you just finding we have a third grade teacher who's not allocated, we're just going to give can you talk about that?
Sure. So when we're looking at this position, we're actually looking to move someone who is currently within the staff into this position. We have a special education position that we would more than likely reallocate into this job.
Financially, you're saying?
Financially, correct.
Okay.
So that there would be no additional staffing that we'd be adding to the position.
So there would be no budget impact
No
to
budget
allocation
impact
of staff. It
correct.
just would be repositioning them to actually serve in a way that would benefit
Yes.
programming.
That is the goal.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that? Because when I read that, the TOSA arts coordination, and then I saw that it was similar to an athletic director, it's a different bargaining unit. So that's why I just had the question in my mind about how that would be.
So, I mean, this is a teacher on special assignment versus, I mean, as we've done TOSAs in the past.
Okay.
As we have, Dr. Champagne Lee's position, that replacement person is going to be a teacher on special assignment.
Okay, and that happens. I guess that's a
Correct.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions about that?
When you're talking about somebody in this position, they have to be certified in something art. So it would either need to be art or music or something along those lines, which narrows your field. So if you're taking somebody and making them half-time, do you have an extra position that's half-time? So for example, say you choose to take one of our musical people, and you now make them half-time so that they can do this half-time. Who's going to fill their half-time spot as a musical person?
Right. So that's really, this would be an open application process. So we'd have to actually see who's going to bubble up for this job, and then make some of those recommendations based on the applicants that we get.
Because usually teacher on special assignment works out well because there's extra spots and you can move the pieces of the puzzle, and there's extra spaces to move around. It gets a little harder when it's specialized and it's
It does. It will present a challenge.
Okay.
That is something that we definitely are aware of, that the challenge would be there. But at the same time, we think it's important to explore to see how we'd be able to fill that job.
Oh no, I think it's a great idea. And just when you were saying like it's not going to necessarily be a budget thing, I'm thinking, well, if there's a half a spot open because you're taking half a spot away, it may be interesting to see how you figure that out.
Right.
Okay.
So it would be obviously a subject matter expert
It would
in
definitely
the
be a
field
subject
of the
matter
arts.
expert. It's someone in the arts, right? So that's someone who would either be arts or visual or performing arts.
Okay. And I guess the only thing I was thinking, Dr. Campley, as you were talking, is that there are non-department staff that have helped out historically with different programming. So I wonder, like you said, it's going to be an application process.
Yes.
So
I
if
would-
someone's interested, go ahead.
No, I would think that for this position, just like there would be an athletic director needs to be somebody who has training in that.
Right.
My expectation for this position would be somebody who holds a degree
In the arts.
and has their certification of
In the arts.
teaching is in something in the arts, whether it be
Okay.
a teacher of art or of music. But I wouldn't expect that just somebody has experience in
Like
it.
a social studies.
Yeah,
Yeah,
who
understood.
has maybe they have experience and they've done musical theater, and that's great. But I think if they're going to be in a position of a coordinator that's overseeing our expert teachers, they should at least have a teaching certificate in that area.
I would agree with that too. So I guess we'll make that part of the.
We certainly will. I mean, maybe Dr. Fuller might want to.
I was just thinking of
jump
him
in,
when
considering he
she
has a
said
theater
that.
background.
We need him. We'll stay
We'll
put.
leave
He
him
has to
where he
stay
is,
put.
exactly
Okay.
where he is.
Okay, thank you
Okay,
for
we'll do that.
answering that question about the TOSA.
Okay, so our staffing and enrollment projections. So here we have our enrollment projections starting with the elementary level. We're comparing, of course, where we were in October. That's our baseline information we're starting with, and looking at our projections for next year, the 25-26 school year. So as we look across the board here at our 4 elementary buildings, we see that we're actually at a negative net 2 for our staffing positions, and student enrollment, we're projecting a decrease of 38 students across the 4 buildings moving into next year. For our middle level, we are, excuse me, we see a decrease of 18 students across both buildings that we're projecting, and a net of 0, losing 1 position and gaining 1 position across the 2 buildings. And then high school, we just have our enrollment for our students, and we see that our enrollment is flat, which is really interesting, that we lose 383 students as seniors, but we also gain 383 freshmen. No problem.
That's from when to when?
This is from October, and this is the projection for next year.
That's from October and the projection for next year. Okay.
And this is something that we've discussed, multiple times when we're looking at our staffing and the projections for our staffing or the request for the staffing. That occupational therapist is what we have put in front of you that we are looking to fill. The athletic trainer, I'm sorry that that's shifted on you, but that says our athletic trainer there, that has already been approved by the board. The cafeteria monitors, which are helping out with our elementary buildings for our support there for our teachers as they're doing their PLC work or professional learning community work, have been approved. And then those other two positions which we've discussed with you have been taken off the board at this point. So this is what our staffing projections look like across our buildings, and as always, we're continuing to monitor this and look at what our needs are based on changes that occur that we may not be aware of at this point. Are there any questions around the staffing and enrollment projections? Okay, if nothing else, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. So looking at the educational section, 4.02, approval of summer school. Motion to approve secondary summer school. Request approval of the secondary summer school. Instruction will be offered on site and facilitated by PVSD staff utilizing online curriculum and our PVSD curriculum and resources. Summer school will be held from June 23rd to July 31st, 2025, 4 days per week, 3 hours per day. Student cost to participate is $300 per course. Are there any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, we shall move that to consent. Moving on to 4.03, approval of summer library hours. A motion to approve summer library hours. Request to approve school libraries to be open during the summer. South, Skipback, Swanksville, and/or high school will open for student book selection and scheduled activities throughout the summer. Libraries will be available to all district families, and specific dates and times are forthcoming. Are there any questions, comments, concerns? Not hearing any, we shall move that to consent. Or 4.04, motion to approve field trips. Request to approve the following field trips as reviewed and forwarded by building principals and district administration. High school, Viking Best Buddies, 2 students. Best Buddies Leadership Conference at Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. The dates are there in mid-July. District budget, cost to the district $2,200. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Not hearing any, we shall move that to consent. 4.05, motion to approve funding adjustments to District of Federal Program allocations. Request to approve the funding adjustments to Division of Federal Program allocations for Title I and Title II. Title IV remains the same. Title I is at $188,832. Title II, $77,622. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Not hearing any, we shall move that to consent. 4.06, motion to approve FIT applications for 2025 to 2027. Request to approve the flexible instruction days FIT application for the 2025-2027 school years as presented. The FIT application was approved June 2024 for 1 year. The approved application remains in place for a 3-year period, at which time it may be renewed. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
I'd like to oppose this.
Just to reminder, it's still the same. I don't think remote days are should be valued at the same as a school day.
So that will be left off of consent.
Can I ask a question, even though we know it's off consent, or just wait till next week?
You can ask the question, sure.
Is there any changes from the already approved FID plan?
No, there are no changes, and we can't change it. It's driven by school code, the legislation. It's a 3-year plan in the eyes of the state, and for some reason last year we only approved 1 year, and we'd like to request approval for the full 3 years.
School board approved 1 year,
Yeah, they did. Yes,
but the state's already approved us for 3 years.
they have.
Correct, and so this can't. So that's why we're Perkins Valley School District's already approved for 3 years for a FID plan. Like, no adjustments can be made to this plan. Like, we can't change that we want to use the days afterwards or before. It's already what the board approved, and the state said it's locked in for 3 years. I don't think, I'll ask Mr. Subers, we can't turn this down. We've already passed it, and the state's already granted it for 3 years. We can't change our FID plan. That was the conversation we had earlier this year.
I don't know if the school board, I haven't really thought it through, but just thinking it through, if the school board doesn't or commits to not do it, not that they would vote against it, but if they did change their mind, they could. They don't have to use the
But that's
FID
not what
days.
we were told earlier in the year. Earlier in the year, we were told it's passed, it's locked in for 3 years.
Well, it's locked in at the state level. Like, you can do it, but
We had the conversation because it was.
But
there
if
was
we
a
voted
snow day
against using it,
coming.
we wouldn't.
We had a conversation because there was a snow day coming, and we wanted to use the FID day prior to the usage of the 3 actual snow days. And we were told we couldn't change it because it's already been approved by the state for 3 years. So this is the same plan that's already been approved. And
Well, I understand that it's sort of like we're approving something that's already been approved,
Yeah.
sort of. But the school board has not taken action next year or the next year.
I think I would agree with Rowan that you can't make any changes to it, but we could opt out. You know, they're not going to force us to use it for the next 2 school years. This is just authorizing the administration to, include these FID days in any future calendars.
And the one from earlier this school year, we know we had to do it that way because this year was already passed by us.
Well, no, yeah, but that's correct, but what Mr. Saylor is saying is also correct. We can't change it. We're just opting to take advantage of a program that's been approved by PDE. I think in theory, we could, if you don't approve it for the next 2 years, it's not available to the administration.
it's not an available option to the administration.
Correct.
The previous one, we had already voted on. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think we voted on it in June of 25.
24.
24,
Correct.
yeah. Not June of 25 just yet. Yeah. It'll be June soon.
So in any event, we're just leaving it off consent, and it'll be up for a vote next week.
4.07, approval of non-resident seniors. Motion to approve 2 non-resident seniors. Request to approve the superintendent's recommendation to allow 2 non-resident seniors who have met the requirements of policy 202 to conclude the 24-25 school year at Perkins Valley High School. The students and/or parents, guardians is responsible for transportation to and from school. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
We're not talking names, but are these as a result of investigations or people that have moved and approached you, or is it a combination thereof?
Just a family moving out of the district that would like children to finish their senior years. So, and policy permits it with board approval.
Sure, yeah.
So it's just a move. Bad
Okay.
timing.
Any other thoughts or comments? Not hearing any, we should move that to consent. And 4.08 was the enrollment report that Mr. Mitchell presented.
Mr. McKinney, that ends your section. Thank you very much. Section 5, business, Mr. Liggett.
Thank you. Mr. Weaver. Good evening, everybody. We have a packed agenda for tonight's Finance Committee of the Whole. Just a quick agenda item here. We have the 25-26 budget update, and we'll talk a little bit about unassigned fund balance. Then we'll head into a lot of the heavy lift that the Safety and Operations Committee did in terms of vehicle package for insurances, some projects. And we have Mr. Moran coming up for a couple of items associated with software items that he would like to recommend and move forward. And then the Chromebrook repair program at the Southeastern Youth Detention Center from Mr. Ganesh. So I'll move right into the budget. The changes that we've had since the last presentation is from a revenue perspective, we've added $94,112 to our overall budget. And you may see some of these items for the first time in several years. That's because we are actually going line item by line item, looking for areas that we might be able to increase based upon trend and analysis. Again, we're conservative, so when we have more than 2 or 3 years of steady income in these line items, we reflect those. One of the items that we're most proud of is the rental income. That rental income trend is reflecting a lot of the promises that were made going back to when we actually added the turf into the stadium and the lower field for the baseball field. We actually said at that point in time our goal was to get to $200,000 in rental fees per year. We are vastly approaching that $175,000, $180,000 figure. So we're getting there. It took a little bit longer, no thanks to the pandemic. But now we have a lot of organizations coming back up and knocking on our door asking to rent our facilities, not just the turf, but our auditorium. So we're very proud of that. That's an area of improvement. Overall, $133 million is our running revenue total at this point in time for tonight. There's the breakdown for local, state, and federal. Quick graph. And again, we continue to monitor and change those areas that we have some hope for in terms of whether it's alternative revenue streams or areas like that, and we'll continue to look at those revenue areas. Moving into the expenditures, again, we have a total of $137,330,567, and yes, that is a gross total budget year to budget year of a little over 3.3%. Changes from last presentation. The North Montco Career Technical Center actually solidified its budget, passed it, and then based upon that, we adjusted our original budget number. So that shows a reflection. And then there are two items that we are removing from the presentation that Arthur mentioned earlier in regards to the removal of a special education teacher and a counselor that were as part of our original equal sign budget presentation in December. So we removed those items. Altogether, we reduced expenditures $296,381. We continue to look at, again, just like revenues, certain areas. So we're looking at Bucksmont for health insurances, and we continue to look at trend and analysis and where we think where the previous actuals ended up and how that might impact us moving forward. How does that change what we've reflected on our quick go-to for expenditures? You can see the red line item that removes the special education and the counselor position, and then changes the equal sign from 14.5 positions down to 12.5 positions. Again, all of the adds at this point in time are considered to be contained within the true-up costs as presented by Mr. Moran going back to November. So we continue to work within those areas as provided. The shortfall for tonight shows a $3.4 million shortfall. And how does that equate to our taxes? So right now we are still showing a 4.27% tax increase. That is, again, continuing to whittle down. What will it take us to get below the 4? You can see there the running total, an additional $219,568, depending upon increased revenues, decreased expenditures, or available uses of unassigned fund balance, which we'll talk about briefly. Again, we continue to monitor a lot of these areas. No information is coming from the state whatsoever from a budget perspective. Our PASBO and PSBA, there's not a heck of a lot of information coming from them either. So we continue to look at some areas, but nothing is a given at this point in time. any questions on the budget. We do have preliminary budget approval, again, as part of our mandatory steps on May 5th. We've advertised that, and so we're ready to go. We do expect changes based upon a discussion we're going to have in the next couple of minutes for uses of unassigned fund balance to get us below the Act 1 index of 4%, and where we might feel comfortable as far as getting to that point in time. Okay, a key component to the uses of unassigned fund balance is our projection. So we are looking at how we are doing in this current year. Remember, from an accounting perspective, we've just finished up the March 31st timeframe. Mrs. Hurd is going through those basic treasurer's reports, financial reports from a revenue perspective and expenditure perspective, period to period, to bring us up to date, and you'll see those reports reflected next week. We are essentially looking at a projection on how we're doing for this current year, taking our budget to actuals and guesstimating in a lot of these areas based upon our experiences. Revenues, for instance, our biggest revenue is our real estate taxes. We know that once we hit December, there are some minor adjustments in January, and then we're confident in that number because there are no more adjustments associated with real estate tax revenue stream. That's a big component to that. We continue to look at the EIT and how we're doing from that perspective compared to where we budgeted. Remember, we're only 9 months in. So we are projecting that our revenues will be $131,739,877. When we compare that to total expenditures, again, we do things like break down the salaries. We know that we are, for instance, about 9/12 through the year, but for salary purposes, we are only about 58% expended because we have salaries in the summertime that we have to calculate and bring back into this current year. So it's an accounting thing, and Amy and I oftentimes go through and we have our lineups, and then we go through and we hit each and every little different line item that we can, and then we come to a general agreement about where we think we're going to be. Right now, we think we'll be about $132,451,965 on the expenditure side. Our beginning unassigned fund balance, as audited and brought forward by Mr. Hogan from Witham, was $8.4 million. So looking at those two items going in, coming out, $7.776 million is where we're projecting our unassigned fund balance. That represents about 5.65% of our estimated expenditures for next year. Remember, that's the silly way the state focuses in on our Act 1 index and forces us to calculate that as one of the variables. As a reminder, when we created the 24-25 budget, we projected that we would need to use $1 million of unassigned fund balance. So the simple fact is that difference between the revenues and expenditures is only $712,000, which means we are projecting a little bit of savings compared to what we thought we would expend. We are not expending the entire $1 million, but only $712,000 of unassigned fund balance, which is a good thing. And again, that's our first projection. That's our first look. When we see you for preliminary budget approval in May, we will have yet another month under our belt, a 10th month that we would be able to predict and look at actuals. There is an awful lot of information that goes into that. We have, for instance, open encumbrances, purchase orders that we book on July 1st, and we have to compare energy, transportation, all of those things go back into where we thought we would expend based upon our budget and where we're actually at this point in time. So a lot goes into that. Now, how does that impact us? So we are trying to determine how much of that unassigned fund balance will be available for us and what kind of implication that has on us. This board is very smart and intelligent when it comes to the use of unassigned fund balance. You understand the variables in finance about what that means for us from a borrowing perspective, for instance.
Or, do you mean you understand?
No, this board has been very supportive.
Oh yeah,
from that perspective.
Just making us sound smarter than we are, I think.
Yeah. Well, they're numbers. You guys get the numbers, and I would assume that if I went off base, you guys would call me on that. So that's a good thing. So remember that percentage of net aside fund balance is very key for us. It is a very strength of our how we present to the world for those potential investors if we do have a potential bond issue coming up, which we don't. I'm just saying that these are the things that key indicators and industries look at. Insurances, for instance, look at those numbers, and that helps them to determine what our rates are for next year, believe it or not. So given the projection, so Amy and Jim are 100% correct, and we know that that projection is going to be 7.776 million. It won't be, but we know that that's what we're working with. How does that compare to our expenditures? So it's about 5.66%. What that means is that we have reserve for about a month and a half should a catastrophe happen. The state only says that we can have a maximum of 8%, which is, gives us about 12%, which is a little over 2 months of emergency fund. So we balance those things. So when we look at what is it that we want to use for unassigned fund balance to bring that shortfall down, which is our philosophy and our strategy, because we feel if we look at the budget to actuals and we have some positive cash flow in our unassigned fund balance, we want to put that to use. We want to either use it as one-time money or utilize it to help offset future tax increases, which we historically have done, and I would dare to say very well. And we've minded our wallet, but yet we've helped to give something back for our taxpayers, to give them some sort of a break. So if we use $500,000 of unassigned fund balance, that means that would take that 4.27% tax increase down to 3.65%. That would leave us then, again, if Amy and Jim are correct, if Jim is correct, let's leave Amy out of this. That would leave us with an unassigned fund balance of about 5.3%. Industry standard, we want to be really strong to all of those people that might invest between 5 and 6%. It was great when we were at 8%, right? Because that was a sign of strength that we knew. 5 to 6% is about where, in my estimation, we need to be, given the facts and circumstances of where we are at this point in time. I don't want to go below 5%. That would show to those investors in the future, perhaps we might have some sort of an instability problem. We don't. I don't want to give that impression, but that's the basic look of what investors might look at.
How much borrowed then goes back in? Because as we talked about in there, the way the setup is strange. We pass a budget, we borrow from the unassigned fund balance, then the state finally passes their budget, and then we put money back in the unassigned fund balance. How much went back in last year? Do you remember?
So actually, I don't think from the state. Remember, they've finalized their budget relatively early.
Overall.
Yes.
Overall, how much went back into the fund balance?
So that's our projection. That's what we're trying to figure out.
Not take out. Go back in. We put money back in too after the fact.
I think I thought this. Yeah, just from the state. We can look at that.
Overall.
Yeah, we can look at that.
Okay.
Yeah, because remember, overall, what we said was we would utilize $1 million of unassigned fund balance to offset that.
Yep.
And what we're projecting is that we'll use $712,000. So theoretically, about that $300,000 figure would be staying in there. Dr. Campley.
Jim, I'm going to be very frank here. All these projections and all these things that we've been talking about for months and months and months was before the circus came to town. And we don't know what's happening with the Department of Education or all the tariffs and how that's going to play into a lot of the projections for some of these capital projects and what we were budgeting of what we thought things were going to cost. So I will be very honest, I'm really concerned about the budget and being fiscally responsible and where should we, we keep saying projected, but honestly, I don't know which ends up right now. And I don't think anybody in here, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, knows where anything is. I mean, is this a good projection? Are we in a nice solid spot if the circus decides to get even freakier?
So I will tell you just a couple of things. One, the benefit of our ESCO program is that those costs are locked in. So it's not like we did a bid project where it would be subject to change orders for price increases. So that's the beauty of the ESCO, is that when they sign that contract, they are locked in at that cost. Any additional cost, it's in the contract, goes to them, not to us. So it benefits them to move forward through that contract as
That was
quickly as
presented to the board when they voted on it, right?
Yes. Yes.
So the board members should know, regardless of what horse is running around, that those prices are already set for the school district.
Yeah, but there's other things coming up, and there's just knowing what we have in our fund balance, and things happen. Like, we don't know if these lights are going to decide to blow out tomorrow. Well, you never know, right? Things happen, and there's a lot of, you just don't know.
Right.
And I just, we're talking about tapping into things and taking from things and moving things around and trying to make decisions on what we are going to do what's best for students and faculty, and making sure that we keep and maintain PV at the quality that PV should be, but also trying to kind of be mindful of the fact that we're in a really unknown territory as far as where's the world going financially right now.
Yep.
And it makes me nervous. And, we were at 8%, now we're at 5%. And just how cautious do we need to be? And can we really afford to be making some of these decisions that, yes, it's best for kids, but do we need to wait a little bit until we're a little more on solid ground, just because things are so rocky right now, which I hate doing because I'd rather do what's best for kids, but I also don't want to put the district in a position that's really unstable.
But this is taxpayers. So are you suggesting, and it's a good suggestion, it's been suggested before, we don't use it. Right now, we're not using unassigned fund balance, and we're at 4.7 to 4.25.
4.27.
4.27. The suggestion is use X amount of unassigned fund balance, and it gets the taxpayers down to 3.75. Nothing is preventing the stuff that we want to do to benefit students. This is a question of
Right, but then that also means taxing families who are also in a very similar situation of, paying taxes or spending $15 for a thing of eggs. And that directly impacts students, whether or not.
Prices are down 73% in the past 25 days.
Okay. I'm not going to go have a back and forth with you. I'm just saying families are struggling with a lot of things right now financially. That's a very real fact. Our numbers are higher than ever for power packs. And so I'm very cognizant of the fact that, we want to keep taxes down, but we also don't want to drain our fund balance, and we want to try and be somewhere in the middle and be mindful of both our home families and what taxing will do to them, but also not drain it. And I'm just trying to think of and either way is going to impact students, right? If we drain our funds, we're impacting students through our money that we have on hold. But if we tax families and we're taking money from the monies that are coming from families from buying clothes to put on their kids' backs and food in their bellies, we're also impacting students. So no matter how you slice it, it's coming down to the kids. So I want to know, where are we? Or should we be considering, do we need everything we're asking for? And I just really want to be very mindful, and it's something I've been thinking about.
So, Mr. Weaver, I guess along those lines, would you be able from your seat, because I know that you and your team have been watching this, right? We're all watching all of the numbers every day. So obviously you don't have a crystal ball, but can you give some sort of perspective as to the conversations you've been having as to how you've come today with this presentation in light of everything else that's been going on? Maybe some peace of mind, I think, is what Dr. Campley is looking for. You are generally conservative
Yes.
with your thinking, though.
Yes, and if you can recall, now sometimes I have trouble remembering what I did yesterday, but when we started this process back in November and December, I had mentioned that I think we're going to be up near the Act 1 index, and I firmly believe that. And that was before the election. That was looking at where we currently were, recognizing salary impacts, benefit impacts. These are some big time numbers now.
4.0 for us.
Yes. Yeah, 4.0. Yep. And remember, the year before, it was 5.3. So that shows you the dip associated with the actual variable that we're bound to. I absolutely hold the same thoughts, Dr. Campley, from that. Now, add on the result of the election. We have a lot of very smart people that don't know what's going to happen. We have history that says that tariff works. We see history that tariffs don't work. I'm not sure. There are people that run billion-dollar corporations that are happy. There are people that run billion-dollar corporations that aren't happy. And I will tell you that we are lucky to be where we are at here in Montgomery County. My colleagues and I talk about fund balances and reserves and our ability to have good conversation like this when the vast majority of school districts in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and maybe throughout the nation, I'm not sure where, what the exact number is, but many of them don't have what we have. They are looking at cuts just in general, regardless of what's happening. They are 25, 35% federal. We are less than 1%. So we are somewhat insulated from that conversation. However, I will remind everybody that from an economic perspective, one of the items that I do track and I have mentioned is alternative revenues on the expenditure side. And that's about the strength of the economy. Again, not to confuse, I don't want to confuse anybody. These are all alternative revenues that help assist us when we create our budget. Go back to 21-22 when our interest earnings on almost $65 million in the bank was $82,000 because it was 0.01% interest earning, right? We are now at 4%, 4.5%. So that same dollar that gets invested is now earning a lot more money than just pennies on thousands of dollars that we earned back then. So I say we're in a good spot, and I agree with you. That worries me because I don't know when the Fed's going to start reducing rates, because overall that's that whole theoretical thing where if we're fighting a recession or we're fighting inflation and then the Fed cuts rates or increases rates. We all sit there and the only thing I think of is this job. When the rates go down, I'm like, oh, there goes the investment income. And when the rates go up, I go, okay. Or they hold steady. I'm like, Amy, we got another couple of months where I think the projections will work out. We actually have those conversations. But those conversations have always happened. It's just now with the whole overlook of where we're at from a political perspective. So we look at that from a conservative perspective. We're always conservative. So I would hope that we're somewhat insulated on that. But you're right. Tomorrow something can happen and the stock market can tank. And then who knows? We are also concerned and asked Berkheimer about how many of our people actually work for some of these federal departments that are being downsized. And they're struggling with getting us that information. That is information, by the way, we used to have when we had a census. So we have had that information in the past, but we don't have that now. That's a concern. It could take one department of 35 people that work in federal government and 35 of them go away, and now all of a sudden the earned income tax that we're counting on doesn't show up. But that's the world that we live in. Really, that's the honest thing. So we've got to plug away. As far as the state goes and the federal, my goal is to get us to have a budget, because by law, if we don't have a budget, I guess they don't take me away in handcuffs, but we face a penalty for that. The state government can say, we'll just wait a couple more months because of whatever the political renderings are. That hurts us, as Mr. Saylor says. Then we're sitting there in September after the tax bills have been issued and people have struggled to pay those tax bills. Now the state decides to show up and give us $500,000 more or whatever it may be. Well, now we have to remember that. And then the following year, that's why I don't have a problem with using unassigned fund balances. I feel that captures that and helps to bring that forward. It doesn't really answer the question. We're still nervous. We are still very nervous. But maybe Amy and I have always been nervous. I mean, $137 million is a big budget. There is a lot that goes on in there. So hopefully that gives you a little bit.
No, I appreciate your candidacy and being honest and open about your nerves. And because then it makes me feel more trustworthy in that what you're putting forward, that you've really thought and been mindful about. Okay, you know what? We're going with this and we're putting our best foot forward with the intention that, this is the best we can do with the information we have, and we're not. It just makes me feel a little better. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And like I mentioned, we are not done yet with some expenditures that we're tracking and monitoring. So hopefully we can continue to whittle that down. 3.65 to 2.97 if we only took 250,000. So I just wanted to give you that range. And again, we'll continue to work on that. Another month of projection. Maybe we'll discover we have a little bit more in unassigned fund balance as projected. And then that will help this conversation, maybe a little bit more.
Jim, one last thing on this, and I appreciate what you're doing as far as use the focused use of the unassigned fund balance to get us to where we need to be with Act 1, and essentially anything that we go below Act 1 of the 4%, we can almost look at it as, I don't want to say it's a gift to the taxpayers, but at least it's something that that we're not taking from them at this point, which is a good thing. And I appreciate as much as you can the efforts that are there. I think we as a board also need to keep in mind, besides you doing what you're doing here, is we have to start, I think, really focusing on the expenditures that we are responsible for, the things that we are approving. And it's not just all your work that's involved in helping the public out here. And I think just as a watchword, and would you agree, we just need to be mindful that, hundreds of thousands of dollars add up to $1 million pretty quickly.
Absolutely. And it is what we've already frozen the budget for this year in an effort to, and that's always a struggle because we want to provide the best education that we can for our students. We feel that that's our goal from a business office perspective. And of course, as Dr. Russell mentions, from an administrative perspective overall. And I think we're in sync with that. From a frozen budget perspective, we are going down now and we are asking a lot more questions in regards, well, it's in my budget. Yeah, okay. Do you need it? And the principals hear that because they are the ones moving those things forward. So we continue to do that work, and they are on board. Our principals are fantastic from that perspective. If we say no, generally they say okay. And if we have to have a conversation with Dr. Russell, we have those.
But
yeah, needs and wants is going to be the key that we need to look out for, I think.
But so here's the issue. I brought this up a couple months ago. So last year we did 2.59 tax increase. That left the fund balance at. Come on. That left the fund balance at 6.95. Okay, we're at a much higher, and then we're going to get the fund balance down to like 5.65. That potentially means in potentially two fiscal years, we might not have fund balance to use if we want to stay around that safety number, right? Unless there's a big changeover. And one of the things that always concerns me is our variable costs are minuscule compared to our fixed costs. Our fixed costs are really some things that we just can't control. A lot of that is PSERS, salaries. The variable cost is tiny. Last year was 5%, 5.51%, 7.3 million. Do we know what our variable cost is right now? Is that a number that we can control? And I'm okay using fund balance, but I would prefer not to get under 6%, just because I am starting to be concerned. Maybe I'll be on the board in a few years, maybe I'm not, but I'll still be a taxpayer. But where are we going to be in 3 fiscal years when there's potentially no fund balance to use? And that would be my concern.
Yeah, we can look at that. We do track the fixed and variable. I just haven't spun that up to share it. We can look at that. So, we have wins and we have losses on a daily basis. We've recently locked in with the MCIU for our procurement. In safety and operations, we talked about how we broke out the cost of each component. So there's delivery charge, there's transmission charges, there's the actual procurement charge of the fossil fuel that we're getting as well. The MCIU leads us from a district perspective or a county perspective on that. We locked in the transmission and we locked in a portion of the commodity charge. And we recently, through the MCIU, just locked in the actual commodity itself. And so now we're looking at, we were at $2.72 per gallon. Now we're at a 2.15 per gallon.
Is that locked in?
That's locked in.
Because crude just dropped it under
Yes.
60,
Yep.
so you could see that number trajectory fall a little bit even after the supplemental changeover for spring-summer
Yep.
oil. But crude's falling, which would that provide us a benefit, or because we locked in, wouldn't?
Yeah, so we locked in 50%, and then the other 50% we went variable, and that's our philosophy. Some school districts run right out and they lock everything in because that's their budget number and they want to get to that,
Yeah.
and some just ride it. You know, they have a lot of cushion behind them when they do that, but some of my colleagues will let it ride because they've just figured they'll get the benefit of everything, and that's their philosophy, is they'll just do it variably because they have enough fund balance in case they've made a mistake from locking in perspective. But that little transaction, when we go through that, that might show some additional savings for next year that we can then reduce that budgetary figure a little bit. So that's the kind of stuff that we're going through on a daily basis to help mitigate that. I will also tell you that most of our colleagues are looking at tax increases. I did share that list with Dr. Russell. I'm not going to share that. That's public spreadsheet, not a public spreadsheet. But many of my colleagues are at that 4% for final budget. Just because of the things that are going on, to Dr. Campley's point, the unknown, maybe they feel better. I mean, some of our school districts are really struggling with potential loss for federal monies, and they're close to us, still in Montgomery County. Some of them are in the middle of COVID-related construction programs that now might be capped and ended. So they seem to have a whole set of different issues than we do. So from that perspective, again, I look at the whole package. I think we're okay. This is not a normal year for us in the fact that we are now looking at this unassigned fund balance as such intensity because of our projection. Okay, so we've got time to talk about that, think about that. And when we do preliminary budget approval, and even next week, if you want to have a little talk about that, that's great, where you can direct me or we can look at recommendations from an unassigned fund balance perspective, and then we can hit the preliminary budget approval under meeting our first goal, which was to get under the Act 1 index. For everybody.
Are you okay just having a number that's shown at reducing the fund balance under 6, just so the board can look at it?
I think that if that's Mr. Weaver's recommendation, that's what I'm comfortable with. And so that's what he's presented. I'm comfortable with that. Are you uncomfortable with that?
Yeah, I said that already. I'm concerned that the fund balance gets under 6%.
Understood.
Thank you. One little note. Sorry, Ms. Waite. We are capped at the 8% by law. That would drive about $2.9 million in unassigned fund balance. Yeah. So that is quite a gap. Yeah. So even if Jim's projection is wrong, and we suddenly have another $1 million, we're still far below the 8%. Mm-hmm. A lot more comfortable, but still below the 8%. Okay, any other questions on budget? Okay, thank you. Another portion of how we have had some successes is the vehicle lease package. We talked about adding 3 vehicles in the safety and operations, and that was passed forward. And we reached back out to Santander Bank, which we just did the leasing agreement for the Chromebooks last month. Good news is that they allowed us to package the vehicle package with the Chromebooks from last year, and they gave us a renewed rate, a different rate. So we were at $477. And because we've packaged things up, they've now come down to 4.59. So that's a benefit. That's a win for us from an expenditure column in 25-26, which we thought we had in. So that's the recommendation, is to go forward with Santander Bank to address the vehicle package and the Chromebooks. Any questions on that? Thank you. Another item, just to keep everybody above board. Last month we approved, finalized, ratified the Sinorama project, which was the track and field board out in Keenan Stadium. The lettering was not included in that package, so we have to have board approval for the lettering, $1,830.73. It's not the dollar figure that's important. It is, what is important is that that is a price of the project in total, and we have to use 2028 bond monies to pay for that lettering. Any questions on that? Thank you. All right, football shed. We have the long anticipated football shed. Mr. Fabrizio and his team did a really good job, worked with Coach Heist. They came to a general conclusion of what they liked. That was moved forward in safety and operations. However, we were working on the concrete pad. That was not ready for the safety and operations, so I'm bringing it forward. It is an additional item that we knew we had to address. This provides the concrete pad. It's on CoStars. And we would recommend moving forward for that for $6,200, again, through the 2028 athletic bond.
I have one question with regards to the concrete, not necessarily for this, but with the other sheds that will be installed based on the approval, do they also require pads or they do not? Understood. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Mr. Moran.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Weaver. This evening, we are bringing a recommendation to the school board to implement a new supervision evaluation software for our district. This is a software that we currently utilize, a software when supervising and evaluating all of our professional staff. In reviewing our current program, which is Frontline Oasis, we noticed that there were concerns over the usefulness of the actual program itself, the ease of use from staff's perspective as well as administration, in addition to the customer service. There are many times throughout the year, each year over the past 3 years, that we've had to make adjustments to the current software. The software is not PA-based, so anytime the Pennsylvania Department of Education makes a change with our supervision evaluation process, we have to go through a pretty elaborate process with the company to make those changes, causing delays in our ability to supervise and evaluate staff effectively. So we looked to the state as to who the preferred vendor is right now for supervision evaluation, and that is EduLink PA-ETEP. They are only PA-based. So they have a direct contact with Pennsylvania Department of Ed. They sit at the table with the Department of Education anytime changes are made to the supervision and evaluation process. All changes are made automatically by this company. So anytime we might need something upgraded to a change that the state has put out, it's would be automatically completed on their end, eliminating the need for us to request any changes. In reviewing this process, we had our educational leaders, so our teacher leaders demo the software, our building administrators, as well as a select group of the district administration. Unanimously, they saw the benefits of moving away from Frontline and to EduLink PA-ETEP. You can see the agreement cost. Currently, we have Frontline budget at $13,755. To move to EduLink or PA-ETEP, it would be $15,923 annually. That is approximately about a $2,168 increase for year one. I will note they are, because of the timing of our possible implementation, they are giving us a portion of it at no cost. Portion costs $5,307. So we would incur those costs in years 2 and 3 of the agreement. Wanted to point that out in this piece. Any questions on the supervision evaluation software? Okay, thank you. In addition to that, tonight we are also recommending to implement a digital time tracking system. And then also we'll talk about the recommendation to replace our current absence management system that aligns with this new system. Our current system is manual. So right now we have 83 employees that utilize punch cards. So if you think of the punch cards where you actually have a time card, you walk up to a clock, you punch in, you punch out. That has caused over the years, just issues with reading those punches, making sure that they are correct. A lot of time invested in not only utilizing the punch card, but then our supervisors reviewing that information, and then payroll also having to review that and manually upload that into our finance system. We also have 216 employees who utilize paper timesheets. So those are done at the building level. They complete a paper timesheet every 2 weeks. That's also then submitted to our payroll. Payroll has to go through those timesheets, make any corrections or adjustments as needed, and then manually enter that information into our finance system. So a lot of manual transfer of data, which also causes a delay in processing employee time, such as overtime or adjustments to their time if needed. So recommendation is to move to a digital time tracking system. This would allow individuals to punch in and punch out utilizing their cards or other features such as similar to geofencing. So that would be an area that we are recommending. Along the same lines then, because we are looking to go to Red Rover for time tracking system, they also have an absence management system. This system integrates with the time tracking system, much more modern than our current system, which is, again, Frontline. It also has the ability to push notifications to our substitutes. So currently, if we need a substitute, that goes entered into our system. The Frontline system then the substitute system has to then call the actual substitutes to see if they're interested, or the individual has to sign into the webpage to see if a position is open. In moving to somebody like Red Rover, Red Rover actually pushes notifications out. So on your smartphone, you get a notification saying, PV has a job opening in 2nd grade at Skipback. Would you like to take it or not? Yes, I would. And now you are the substitute. So they have seen districts that have moved to Red Rover are seeing increased sub-fill rates because of the ease of use for the substitutes, as well as the user interface for districts. The cost of this, Red Rover really worked with us in looking to implement their program. They are giving it to us a cost of $25,000 for the next 3 years, $25,000 per year. Frontline right now, just for absence management, costs us $24,957. So for the same cost that we are paying for Frontline, which is a much more antiquated system, we're getting not only an upgraded absence management system, but also time tracking. Does include a $6,000 implementation fee. I will note $3,000 would come out of this year's budget, and then $3,000 out of next year's budget. One-time fees. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
So STS, which is our substitute provider here at Perkiomen Valley, they actually allow availability on both Frontline and Red Rover simultaneously. So it is the same pool of subs, but not all subs have access to all school districts in both servers. So I guess with implementation of this, I'm only stating just for due course to make sure that STS communicates that Perkiomen Valley is moving over to Red Rover so they can be added to the substitute pool so we don't have a void in sign up for jobs.
Yes, no, absolutely. Glad you pointed that out. We would work very closely with STS. STS is aware that we are looking at Red Rover. So STS also supports other school districts that have Red Rover. Another benefit of Red Rover is that we can also then communicate with the substitutes that are STS employees. We currently cannot do that, so
I think it's a
challenge.
preferable system,
Mhm.
Red Rover. I just was pointing out that way folks that are signed up on Frontline with PV know that they need to sign up with Red Rover for PV now.
Yes,
that's all.
absolutely. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Moran. In reference to the time card system, the upgrade, would that cost any positions or anything? Like, would we lose people in regards to a more efficient system?
No, we definitely would not lose people, but it would streamline, make the processes that we have in place more efficient and more effective. Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you.
Hello, everyone. As you might know, Viking Genius Bar is a one-credit course that's being offered at the high school. This is a unique course where the students are offered hands-on, real-world experience, and including teaching device repairs. There's another aspect to this course called passion projects, where the students choose their own adventure. Many of our students are involved in learning new programming languages, building apps, working with the drones to capture video cameras, etc. So Southeast Youth Development Center has expressed interest in offering this course at their facility, and we worked with them to develop this course, and we'll be offering this course twice a week in a hybrid fashion. So we also worked with their solicitors to build an agreement that will cover all aspects of this course, including the district getting paid for our staff's time and materials. So any questions? All right, thank you.
I apologize. In regards to PAETEP, we would request not to move that to consent agenda when we get to that point. Our contract or agreement is being currently reviewed, and there are several minor suggestions to the actual contract itself or agreement. We will have those to the board this week, so just want to ensure that we don't put that on consent. Thank you.
Okay, so remember I said sometimes we win and sometimes we lose from a business office perspective. So those are things that we have to capture moving forward. Anything else for the Finance Committee of the whole? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. All right, looking over the agenda real fast, the item that Mr. Moran did not want to go onto the consent agenda is 5.07. So just want to get that out there before I go and cruise through the rest of this. Other items that were covered by Mr. Weaver, 5.02, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Skipping 7. 8, 9. Were all covered by Mr. Weaver, and if there are no objections, I would move those to consent. Thank you. 5.10 is concrete floor for the lower fields and the dugouts. 5.11, approval of the North Montco budget. 5.12, YMCA agreements. And 5.15, the approval of the MOU to access Validate Me transcription service. If there are no objections, I'd like those to go to consent. Okay, excellent. 5.14, there will be a placeholder for next week. I'm sorry?
1.3 is on consent.
1.3? Yes. Oh, thank you. I'm trying to do this nice for us.
You're doing a great job. Yep.
And then 5.16 is the grants and donations report. And that has nothing on it, so that ends my section. Thank you.
Mr. Liggett, thank you. Great job. Section 6, payment of bills, Mr. Saylor. Thank you very much. Section 7, professional personnel, Dr. Sadler.
7.01 is already on consent, is the acceptance of resignations and retirements. Are there any questions or concerns? Okay, that will go on consent, remain on consent. 7.02 is also already on consent. It's the approval of leaves of absence. Are there any questions or concerns about 7.02? If not, that will go to consent, remain on consent. 7.03, approval of administrative appointments is already on consent. Are there any questions or concerns about that? Okay, 7.04, approval of professional appointments, that is already on consent. Are there any questions or concerns about 7.04. 7.05 is approval of long-term substitute extended daily substitute appointments. That is already on consent. Are there any questions or concerns about that? 7.06, approval of summer 2025 extended school year professional appointments. It's already on consent. Are there any questions or concerns about that? 7.07, approval of co-curricular appointments. That's already on consent. Any questions about that? 7.08, approval of spring coaches for 2024-2025 is already on consent. Are there any questions or concerns? That ends my section.
Thank you, Dr. Sadler. Section 8, Dr. Campley.
Yes, 8.01 through 8.06 are all on consent, and that ends my section.
Thank you so much, Dr. Campley. Governance, Dr. Weston, Section 9.
Thank you. Item 9.01, first reading on policies. Policies for first reading are listed in the agenda. Any questions or comments at this time? If not, they will remain on first reading for next week. Item 9.02, approval to hold a second reading and adopt policies. The policies for a second reading are listed in the agenda. If there's any questions or comments on these policies for tonight, seeing none, we can move these to consent and approve next week. And then finally, item 9.03 is the approval of the student loan month resolution. This is a request to approve to adopt the attached resolution declaring May 2025 as student loan month. Are there any questions or comments on this agenda item? Seeing none, we can move this to consent. And that ends section 9.
Thank you, Dr. Weston. That brings us to Section 10, closing items. Once again, 10.01, we will open the floor for comments from the audience. Anyone from the audience has 3 minutes to comment on any topic, and I open the floor. Okay, seeing none. 10.02, comments from board members. I open the table. Okay, seeing none. 10.03, video disclaimer notice, and 10.04 is adjournment. I will let the public know for the record at 11.01, we did have executive session for staffing and personnel and negotiations. That's right. Okay, thank you so much. See you next week.